this is Ashley with Marshflower Studio. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how I make these cute little jack-o'-lantern candy buckets. So for these little buckets, I have my nice bright orange, and I've got a little bit of black sitting over here to the side. So these are something that you can scale and make. I wouldn't go too much smaller, but you could definitely go bigger. And I'll talk a little bit about how you can do that as we're working. But I do make these, or I make them, in two pieces. So if you can tell, you can't see the stitching from this face. So I have two little bowls, basically, in the orange, and one is inside, and then I crochet them together at the top to kind of close that in. And the inside part is not something you have to have. I just liked it a lot better to kind of hide those stitches because they can look a little messy unless you're just really good at making both sides look neat, which I am not. So you can do any kind of little faces on them you'd like. These are great from a price point standpoint, because I have found that people are much more willing to spend, up to 20 bucks on that impulse purchase. And these fall, under that. If it's for, a gift for a teacher or a boss or an assistant, just want to brighten someone's day. Stuff like this is in that kind of price point where you feel comfortable doing that without, overspending on it, right? So super cute, nice for a little gift. Pop a little fun-sized candy bar or two in there. Fill it up with M&Ms or Skittles or whatever your favorite candy is, or someone else's favorite candy maybe. But we'll get started with these. And for the outside part of this bucket, I do use a 5mm hook, just because I'm not stuffing it, and I don't necessarily need it to be super tight because I'm putting, this inner layer inside. For the inside part, I will switch over to my 4mm hook, and that just helps because of how tight my tension is. It helps make sure that this inside bucket is going to fit nicely inside versus kind of being too big in there. So I've also got my stitch marker and my yarn needle. In case you haven't watched any of the other videos where I've talked about these already, the large hairpin for me is a much preferred stitch marker. You can slip these in nice and easy here with this wide opening at the end, and then because of the way that it's made, obviously, this part up here will rest in your, or on your stitch, and it's much easier to work around because it's not as bulky. When you start working with some of those other stitch markers, and I had some up here the other day. I don't know what I did with them. Oh well. Some of the other plastic ones that are shaped a little bit more like a safety pin tend to seem a little bulky for me when I'm trying to work around them, and it's kind of frustrating to get them clipped and unclipped. So I kind of stay away from those. There are a couple other versions out there that, to be honest, I haven't tried because I found this. I had a ton of them already because I used to use these for my hair a lot. The ones that I use in my projects with my yarn have never been in my hair. But once I tried it and found that it was a good option for me, I just kind of stuck with this. So you can get tons of them for pretty cheap. My yarn needle, this one is a metal yarn needle because I kept breaking my plastic ones. I guess I'm a little too forceful sometimes trying to make sure that it goes in the right spot. But most of the time you can find these in a set with several others that are the same size. Here's my purple one that came in the same group. And I have several others as well. The bent tip on here, for me, just makes kind of getting underneath the stitches and back out a little bit easier than some of the ones that are just straight. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but it actually did help me quite a bit as far as sewing things together or sewing, you know, faces and stuff on other projects. So also make sure you've got some scissors handy. Probably the most difficult thing about this little basket is going to be this top rim. But if you follow the directions that I'm going to give, it's really not that bad. Okay, so we'll get started, and of course we're going to do our 6 single crochets in our magic circle to begin with. So magic circle, and then here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And of course our background noise is brought to you compliments of my tiny tornadoes, one of which is currently getting over a cold. So he's cleaning out all that mess. Sounds super fun. All right, for our next row, we're going to have our 6 increases. So there's 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12. All right, our next row is going to be our increase and single crochet. So we'll have 18 at the end of this row. So there's 1 and 2, and then 3, 4 and 5, and then 6, 7 and 8, and then 9, 10 and 11, and then 12, 13, 14, and then 15, 16, 17, and then 18, 19, 20, and oops. We'll get rid of 19 and 20 there. It's supposed to stop at 18. If you were doing what you were supposed to do, you were stopping at 18. I was thinking about the dog barking in the street. Okay. Our next row is going to be an increase and 2 single crochets. So we'll have a total of 24 at the end of this next round. So we'll have 1 and 2, and then 3, 4, 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. All right, then we're gonna have another increase row, and this is our last increase row. So we're gonna have 3 single crochets and then our increase, and that'll take us out to 30 stitches for the row. All right, so there's 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Okay, so this is the bottom of our little pumpkin bucket. Make sure that's nice and tight there in the middle. And then I'm going to do my first 2 single crochets and put my little stitch marker so that I don't have to worry about my rows. So we're going to do 5 rows of single crochet here to build up the sides of our bucket. And as I was saying before, if you wanted to make these larger, you could absolutely do that. You would just have more increase rows in your bottom, and then you would also need to just increase the number of stitches up the sides of your pumpkin. And there's not really, you know, a specific mathematical method to, you know, how many increase rows you have versus how many rows up the side. You would just need to kind of eyeball it, I guess. And once it's as tall as you think it needs to be, then you're done. And for the inside little part, if you're doing the inside, it is 1 less increase row and 1 less on the sides of the basket or bowl, wherever you call it. One, 2, 3. And so I've got 2 more rows to finish the outside part of my little bucket here. And for these smaller ones, just having that inside piece makes them nice and sturdy, so they're not going to kind of flop over on themselves. If you do make a larger one, I would recommend some of the plastic canvas, so you can kind of cut that to fit and then put that between the two layers before you sew up the top. Or you can always use one of the actual plastic buckets as the support for your little crocheted guy here. And we are going to essentially embroider the face on these little guys. But if you're making a larger one, you can still embroider the face if you'd like, or you could just make the shapes to create the face, kind of crocheting them and then sewing those pieces to the sides. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so this is the sides of my little pumpkin here. I'm going to do a slip stitch to fasten off. We don't need a long tail for this part because we're just going to use it to tie a knot with when we're finished. And we can tuck that little starter tail down in the bottom, or you can weave it in, or you can trim it so it's not quite as long. But that's the outside of our bucket. So I'm going to go ahead and do the face for this little jack-o'-lantern bucket. And so I've got some black yarn here. I think I've got about 3 feet. I always like to make sure I've got plenty so I can cut off the extra if I don't need it, but I don't want to run out and have to start a new thread, right? So I got to kind of figure out where I want my pieces to go. So I'm going to be working on the opposite side from where I finished. So my last stitch is over here, so I'm going to be working on this part over here to put my face. Let's see. So if I want my eyes to be 2 rows, my eyes are going to start up here and come down 2 rows. And then my nose is 1 stitch over. So the top of my nose is going to go right here. And I like to do the nose first, just because it makes it a little bit easier to kind of figure out where everything else needs to go after that. I'll leave a little bit of a tail there so we can sew that off at the end. But basically, we are going to just be going over top of this little stitch here. So we're going from the top of the nose through this hole and through this hole, just to kind of create that triangle. And if you're using the same kind of worsted weight yarn that you use to make the pumpkins, then it shouldn't take too many passes to kind of fill this in. And you don't have to use black. You can use a brighter orange, you can use yellow. I use black just simply because when you buy those little buckets at the store, their faces are done with the black ink. But if you wanted it to be more like a traditional candle lit pumpkin. And definitely go for, yeah, the yellows or the oranges. All right, so I've got my nose. My eyes are going to be, so I've got my nose stop here. So the corner of this eye is going to go right in this next stitch beside it. And I actually need to come from the other side. And then it's going to be 2 stitches wide at the bottom. So over 2 stitches. And then we're going 2 rows up. So the upper part of this eye is going to come right through there because that is the closest middle stitch to where I have the bottom of this eye. Whoops. I went the wrong way again. Let's slip that back out and come from the back. All right, and then we're just gonna do the same thing we kind of did with the nose. Make a couple passes back and forth. To close in this eye here. And because it's much wider down here and there's more space to cover, I will go through that stitch that's in between those 2 at the bottom as well. And I will also come from the top, whoops, and kind of punch through the middle of those stitches. Just to make sure that we cover all of that orange that you can see there. So we'll come through that top part again, and then we'll punch down through the middle of, I don't know what's happening to my video right now. All right, we'll punch down through the middle there. So I've got my eye covered for that one. And then I'll move over to the next eye. Again, 1 stitch over from the top point of that nose. And then we'll go 2 stitches wide at the bottom. And then 2 rows up. I think with this one, because our other eye kind of tilts to the outside, I'm actually going to put this one over to the side on purpose as well, so they have more of the same shape. I'm just repeating that same process. We'll go back and forth between all those sides a couple of times. We'll go down through the middle. We'll go through the middle of those 2 side stitches, just to make sure we can kind of fill in that space. We'll go through this one. Go across the bottom one more time with this one. And then we'll do our mouth. All right, so for our mouth, I'm gonna start on the side, and you can, decide whichever side you want to use. I'm gonna have my mouth, I'm gonna try to make it similar to this one. And when I first started trying to make mouths for pumpkins, it was a little bit daunting because I thought I was gonna have to do an outline and then come back and fill it in, but you really don't have to do that. You just create the mouth as you want it to be, and there's not any filling in that you have to do. I will go over the stitches twice just to make sure they're nice and thick and you can see them really well. I think with this guy I'm just going to do a nice little smile. Let's give him one little scraggle tooth over here on this side. Okay. So now I'm just going to go back and kind of double over his little smile here. Just make sure that it's nice and thick, easy to see. All right, so I'll pull what I have left of this string back through here. I kind of caught that starter tail and sewed through the middle of it at one point there. So it's a little shorter than I intended it to be, but it'll be all right. Still got enough to tie a little knot there. So I'll cut off this extra. And if you thought I was kidding before, this is what the back of mine looks like right now. Not exactly pretty. So that's why I have that inner section to kind of cover that up. All right. So for the inside part of our bucket, I'm going to switch over to my 4mm hook. And this is, again, just something I do to make sure with the tension that I have that inner bucket is going to fit inside nicely, because things tend to be a little bulkier if I use the same hook to try to make something fit inside. So we're going to start with our magic circle again and do our 6 single crochets in our magic circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. And then our 6 increases. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8, 9, and 10, 11, and 12. Make sure our circle's nice and tight there. Then we're going to do our increase row where we have an increase and then a single crochet. So there's 1 and 2, and then 3, 4 and 5, and then 6, 7 and 8, and then 9, 10 and 11, and then 12, 13 and 14, and then 15, 16, 17, and 18. All right, our next row is going to be our increase in 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and 2, and then 3, 4, 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay. So for the inside, that's where we're going to stop for our increase rows. And then for our side wall, we're only going to do 4 rows of single crochet. So we don't want the inside to be taller than the outside. So I'm going to do my first 2 single crochets there, and then put my stitch marker so that I don't have to count to 24 4 times. But once your little side or inside is completed here, we'll attach these 2 pieces together, and then your little bucket is basically done. The handle takes all of 30 seconds, and you've got a cute little pumpkin bucket. I know sometimes I work on a pattern and I'm like, oh my gosh, when is this gonna end? Seems like this is taking forever. And then you realize that you only had 1 more row. I can't even count the times I've been working on a project until late into the night. And I'll be like, you know what? I just need to put it down and I'll come pick it back up tomorrow. And when I come back the next day, I literally had 1 or 2 rows left. But I didn't want to turn the page and see a whole bunch more directions. And then I'm kicking myself for not just finishing it the night before. Alright, so this will be my 4th row here. 1, 2, 3, 4. With the inside of this bucket, we want this nicer finish to be where you see it. Okay, so we're gonna put this little bucket kind of inside out, or out, yeah, inside out, down inside, so that we still have that nice finished stitch that you'll see inside the bucket. Oh, my B words are getting confused today. All right, so before I stick that in and start to attach it, I am going to do a slip stitch to kind of even off the change here. And then I'm going to chain 1, and then I will flip this. And I want where I'm finishing with the inside to line up with where I finished with the outside. Okay, and for this outside portion, oops, we have 30 stitches on the outside bucket and only 24 on the inside. So we're going to be doing a decrease, but only for the outside portion of this bucket. Okay, and it sounds like it's going to be complicated, but it's really not. So to start with, I'm going to go into the very next stitch. Actually, I'm going to yarn over because I'm doing half doubles for this top row. So I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to go through the first stitch on the outside and through the first stitch on the inside. I'm going to yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, and then the same thing with the next one. We'll half double crochet, so yarn over, go through the first or the outside bucket, through the inside bucket, pull it up and go through all 3. We'll do that same thing again. Another half double through both pieces. And then this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So we need to decrease on our outside bucket, but not decrease on the inside. So we're going to yarn over and go through the outside and the inside for this first part and pull up a loop. And then we're going to go through that very next stitch on the outside part only and pull through another loop. So now you've got 4 loops on your hook, and we'll grab or yarn over and pull through all 4. So we've decreased on the outside, but not decreased on the inside. Okay, and that's how we'll work all the way around. So we'll do 3 where we go through outside and inside and do a half double. Do another outside and inside, half double. Outside and inside, half double. And then now it's time for another one of those decreases. So we're going to do outside and inside and pull through a loop, and then outside only and pull through a loop. And then we'll yarn over and pull through all 4. And then back to regular half double through the outside and inside layers. And that was 3. So we have a decrease row here. All right, we're back to regular through both layers. 2, 3, and then our decrease. And then again 1, 2, 3. And then our decrease for the outside. 1, 2, 3, and we've got our 2 stitches left here on the outside and just 1 left on the inside. So through both layers and then just through the outside layer. And then we will jump over and slip stitch to the top of that first half double. And then we'll cut our yarn off. Let's see, need my yarn needle. So to try to make this top row as seamless as possible, we're going to go through the back and then down through the middle, or however you want to fasten off this top edge here. So then we'll just tie our little square knot. And I will tuck these little tails down through in between those 2 side pieces here. So I'm not inside, I'm not outside. Or in between. Cut those off. So now we have the outside and inside of our little bucket. I'm going to grab my 4mm hook and my black yarn. We're going to make a little slip knot. You kind of got to decide where you want your handle to be. So we're just going to do a little attachment here. I like to do kind of like a single crochet and then 16 chains. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right. And you can make yours longer or shorter. If you'd like, 16 was just a good height for me as far as, you know, kind of measuring up with the actual size of the bucket. I didn't want it to be too tall. And then we're going to decide where we want the other side to come out, and we'll do another little single crochet there to attach it. And then I'm going to slip stitch my way back across this chain just to add a little bit of sturdiness to this section. And of course, you don't have to do the slip stitches. I just felt like if it was only one layer of chains, they might get a little bit stretched out over time. So the slip stitches kind of help keep it at the right length. And then slip stitch right into that single crochet at the bottom there. We'll cut that off. I'll tie my little square knot over here and tuck the extra little pieces down through the sides like I did with the back. And your little jack-o'-lantern bucket is all finished. So I hope you guys liked the video. I hope that you enjoy making these little jack-o'-lantern buckets. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button and give the video a like. Give these cute little jack-o'-lantern buckets a like, okay? Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm kind of overwhelmed with the number of people that have subscribed to these videos. It makes me happy that there are so many other people out there that love crocheting, and especially making some of these simpler, faster, fun little projects. If you have requests for future videos, throw those in the comments and I'll work on those. Since Halloween is coming up soon for me making this video, I do have a couple other Halloween inspired projects I'm going to be putting up in the next week or so, and then I will be switching over to working on some things for Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and Hanukkah and all those kinds of fun things. So make sure that you subscribe so you can see all that fun stuff that comes out. Remember that you can go back and view past videos. There are lots and lots and lots of fun things to make, most of which take under an hour. So you can just sit down and make one without having to commit half a day or a whole day to making it. And I'll see you guys in the next video.